Noiselessly, the wind comes, making tracks in the void of knowledge. You cannot stop it, and do not want to, and would not dare to. Welcome to Night Vale. Hello, listeners. My name is Nicholas Godwin. In view of his recent re-education session in the old abandoned mineshaft, which I hear now gets HBO and BBC America, Cecil has asked me to cover for him during his unavailability. In the news today, the City Council has announced that the bill allowing the Water and Utilities Department, in addition to its usual fees for services such as water supply, waste disposal, and novelizations of Gregorian chants, to charge a small fee for the provision of gravity, has now been passed. The legislation of the purchase of gravity at a fee has met with fierce opposition and heated debates. Those in favor of the bill maintain that the previously free gravitational services were a drain on municipal funds and a waste of taxpayers' money. Joseph Carlton, the homeless man who for the past 2 weeks has been living in a small cardboard box outside of Big Rico's Pizza, argues that it is not the government's job to make the use of fundamental forces of nature mandatory to the public. What if I do not want to use gravity? Carlton asked the customers of Big Rico's from his box, accompanied by voices of agreement and wildlife from within the same vessel. Should I have to disconnect my water supply as well? When passers-by pointed out to him that he did not pay for any municipal services and had no running water, Carlton responded by shouting, "The City Council is on fire! The City Council is on fire!" over and over again. Witnesses report that Joseph Carlton was then lifted aloft by an unseen force and carried into the infinite void which is the night sky. No one has heard from Carlton since that incident, nor has anyone seen his spatially dubious cardboard domicile which once resided next to Big Rico's Pizza. Nobody makes a slice like Big Rico's, despite the menu innovations made since wheat and its byproducts were banned by the City Council several months ago. More on this as it develops. The Sheriff's Secret Police call for the attention of the citizens of Night Vale in the following message. Attention, citizens of Night Vale. The City Council has just announced that part of the new gravity bill is an addendum to make electromagnetism a paid municipal service as well. This addendum has always been part of the original bill, and so was passed when the bill was passed, because it isn't even really an addendum and we're not sure why we called it one in the first place. We never called it whatever it was you thought we called it, and we have announced this electromagnetic fee before in previous announcements concerning the Gravity and Electromagnetism Bill, which has always been called that. Several complaints have already cropped up among the residents of Night Vale whose gravity and electromagnetism have been shut off in their homes for non-payment. Some deaths have been reported from families whose bills, they were told, were so regularly overdue that members of the household began to lose their own personal electromagnetism, and have vaporized into the subatomic particles of which we are all made, and for which only the silent song of electromagnetic attraction maintains coalescence of form. Old woman Josie, out by the car lot, reports that her angel friends warn her that some terrible doom is upon us as a result of this legislation. When asked if she could be any more specific, she simply responded with a whispered, "Terrible doom," followed by a soft whimper. She could be persuaded to say nothing more, and any attempt to get more information was met with casual weeping and a terror-inducing sound of flapping wings. Listeners, if you know something about the Gravity and Electromagnetism Bill, or if you have experienced anything interesting, pleasant or unpleasant, or wordlessly excruciating, regarding the disconnection or reconnection of your gravitational and electromagnetic services, please give us a call. More on this story as it becomes more imminently calamitous. And now for a public service announcement. The City Council is and has always been a women's rights supporter, they, the City Council, said to me in unison over the phone just now. In view of this most worthy of causes, the City Council is suggesting and encouraging the following. Ladies, begin shooting your neighbors with firearms. We could say to shoot men and women equally in order to strike a gender-neutral pose in high-profile feminist society, but we all know that really, men are the targets here. Don't listen to the media tell you to smile and speak softly and be a lady. Bust a cap in your least favorite person today and reap your rewards in heaven. If anyone tells you that you can't just shoot people, that people don't like it when you shoot them, casually remind the chauvinistic naysayers that you aren't shooting people to make them happy. You're shooting them for you. This is in no way a plot to incriminate women for assault and murder, nor is this a convoluted plan of the media to convince women that the media really wants them to be prim and proper, when really the media wants men to die, and any claims to this effect will be dealt with efficiently and mercilessly by the City Council. This has been a public service announcement. This just in. The entirety of Old Town Nightvale has been spotted held aloft approximately 30 feet above the desert surface. Citizens from all over our fair burg have claimed that their gravity, electromagnetism, and water supplies have been disconnected despite historically and currently faithful payment of all bills to the city. The Water and Utilities Department's response has been only to say that no payment confirmation numbers have been given over the phone, or on the internet, or by Bloodstone Circle chanting to support these claims from the citizens, even though I myself have never received a confirmation number for any of my water payments, nor has anyone else who has reported to this station. The problem of the floating old town has been vehemently denied as even existing by the sheriff's secret police. The buildings, furniture, and screaming human bodies are projections of the spirit world, says a letter which appeared on my desk here next to my microphone when I looked away for a moment. There is no reason why disconnection of internal building gravity should cause the building to float, and the sheriff can have no sinister purpose behind their hovering stasis approximately 33 feet and 4.79 inches above the desert sands. Obviously, this apparition of floating torment is a trick of the senses, and anyone who is experiencing this delusion should report this immediately for rehabilitation and re-education. Reports can be made by hooting twice like an owl, and once like a young man in a vehicle passing by another young man on the street and thinking it would be funny to hoot at him suggestively as a practical joke. Pay your water bill. Listen to our town's protectors, people. Pay your bills. Do not trust your senses, and report any delusions to the secret police by the suggested method. Or, simply say the word report out loud. That usually works too, as the sheriff and his secret police keep nearly 24/7 surveillance on all citizens at all times, so they will probably hear you. And now, a word from our sponsor. Die. Die painlessly and softly in the night, like so many before you. Die, humanity, and make way for a new and better future. Die curled up on your bed, mourning for lost opportunities to make amends to the loved ones you have pained. Too many times you have eaten that sandwich, and you can't change the future, or the present. The past is an assassin without pity. Die, lonely stranger, and never realize that her feelings for you mirror your own for her. Die quickly and suddenly, instead of in permanent torment, for torture is not a consummation devoutly to be begged for, but an unforgivable matrix of causality. Die, human. Die. 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 This message brought to you by Old Spice. Whale corpses, stripped of blubber and left as if in the ocean by 17th century seafarers, have been spotted floating above the dog park at approximately the same height that Old Town Nightvale was spectrally seen at, as reported earlier in our broadcast. Citizens are reminded not to approach the dog park, or even to be aware of its existence. Cecil called me during our last break to tell me that Carlos, that suave scientist outsider Cecil always finds himself so infatuated with for reasons imperceptible, called him to tell me, that very unusual things are happening in his lab. It seems that, according to his measurements, there is no gravity anywhere in Night Vale. Cecil reports that Carlos reports that there has never been any gravity in Night Vale, and that there is no explanation for how the citizens of our small town are staying on the ground, or what causes objects to fall. I asked Cecil if Carlos knew anything about electromagnetic activity in Night Vale, but Cecil didn't remember hearing Carlos say anything about it. But frankly, that's not surprising, as Cecil didn't remember much about the call at all, and spent most of the time talking to me about Carlos's hair and mannerisms, with occasional delusions of reciprocity. Experts in gravity and electromagnetism are now being consulted concerning the nature of this unusual development. Actually, according to this note that was just handed to me, the only expert of gravity and electromagnetism in Night Vale was seen as a bloodied, hovering corpse in Old Town Night Vale, which is definitely not actually hovering or in any kind of disrepair at all. Attempts to contact him have so far been unsuccessful, but he is definitely alive and earthbound somewhere, as the image seen in Old Town Night Vale was obviously merely the ghostly projection of a malevolent poltergeist. More on this after the following. But now, traffic. Have you ever driven late at night, picking up food from Jack in the Box because Jack in the Box is the only place in town with food late at night? You pull up to the window. You ask for a hamburger. At what fuel level would you prefer your hamburger? The employee asks through the small, crackling intercom. You ask for a hamburger as you descend into the formless, empty void which is the eternal afterlife, so hated and feared and loved by its worshippers that few dare to whisper its name. 6 Flags over Texas. You ask for a hamburger. The radio announcer gives you no answer, for he has no awareness of your plight. A pile of kittens dies in your mind, calling your name in 17 languages intermixed, like chocolate pudding and gravel put through a blender on the pulse setting for a period of time that does not really qualify as a pulse. You ask for a raccoon. No raccoon is forthcoming. That will be $5.39, the radio announcer states blankly. You try to pay, but you find you are only carrying currencies long defunct and mildly sacrilegious. You hamburger for an ask. An ask is sent to your inbox, but you cannot read it, for the message is written entirely in sign language. You hamburger for an ask. The employee sends you an ask about hamburgers in English, but you cannot read it, for you find that when you look at your screen you are only able to speak Farsi, an ability which departs as soon as you look away. You order a cheeseburger with fries and a small drink. That will be $5.39, the employee says. You pay. You eat. Delicious. This has been Traffic. The City Council just announced that they have repealed the Gravity and Electromagnetism Bill, and that the bill never actually existed in the first place. No such bill was ever presented to us, they declared in a broadcasted telepathic message heard in the minds of a randomly selected 20% of the population. And no such bill ever will be. Forget about the gravity bill. Forget about the world. Forget your troubles. Forget about your children, your wives, your past, and your sacred honor. But never forget your zealous use of microwave ovens. Old Town Night Vale is no longer visible above the city, nor are the marine carcasses or mangled human bodies. Curiously, Old Town Night Vale is actually no longer visible anywhere. According to local reports, the entire neighborhood has vanished completely, buildings, roads, lawns, and bloodstone circles all, leaving behind only the desert sands on which they were built. The sheriff's secret police maintain that there was never a floating section of town, and deny any responsibility for its lack of current existence or even any knowledge of that particular problem, and if you know what's best for you, you will do the same. More after the weather.
He pulled her hair, she stole his lunch money. They always argued when they're in the same room, honey. He made her mad, she called him names. He fell in love, and can he really be blamed? When he lay down on his pillow, he was thinking of her name. And when he woke up in the morning, all his dreams were of the same. And all the girls that tried to chase him down, he didn't know their names. He was a one-woman man. He worked hard to be a good man to impress her. She did her level best not to be impressed. They grew closer every day, and though he wanted to say all of the thoughts locked in his heart, he waited till the right day. When he lay down on his pillow, he was thinking of her name. And when he woke up in the morning, all his dreams were of the same. And all the girls that tried to chase him down, he didn't know their names. He was a one-woman man. And when that day finally came, and he decided that he'd waited long enough, took her aside and said the things he thought he'd never say. But she said, "I'm sorry, you're a man that I could never love, but we can still be friends." He said, "I don't think we can, 'cause when I lay down on my pillow, I am thinking of your name. When I wake up in the morning, all my dreams were of the same. And all these years I tried to just be your friend, but I can't, 'cause I'm a one-woman man." So time passed, he tried to move on. She discovered he's a hard man to improve on. Dated around, but couldn't find the perfect gentleman she really had in mind. And when that girl finally came and saw that he was what she's looking for, sent him a letter, said the things she thought she'd never say. "I'm sorry, you're the only man that I could ever love, and I would understand if you found someone who'd be more than your friend. But when I lay down on my pillow, I can only think her name all night long until the morning, and it's driving me insane. I know I let you down, but just say the word if you can't." When that boy had read the words written in that letter, he thought he must have died. I must admit he cried. He never thought she'd ever come around. He left at break of day to meet her early in the morning, 'cause he really had to say, "When I lay down on my pillow, I'm still thinking of your name. And though I tried to get along, somehow my feelings are the same. For all the years I've tried to get over you, but I can't, 'cause I'm a one-woman man. When I lay down on my pillow, I'm still thinking of your name. When I wake up in the morning, all my feelings are the same. For all the years I've tried to get over you, but I can't, 'cause I'm a one-woman man." 'Cause he's a one-woman man.
Most of the buildings and other structures of Old Town Nightvale have returned to their original location in that section of town, though not necessarily in their exact original configurations. Surviving residents report that furniture, groceries, monoliths, and other household objects are sometimes found in different homes than those in which they started, before the gravity bill, which never existed and should not be mentioned. Some buildings have only reappeared in part, and a few not at all. Furthermore, occasional bits and pieces of home and garden components and equipment have been found strewn about in other parts of Night Vale, such as streets, fountains, other homes, public buildings, and pagan altars, some of which have been identified by locals as part of Old Town Night Vale homes. And now a brief editorial. I would just like to say something here, listeners. We should remember that the city and the secret police have been earnestly involved in these events, and thank them for their constant service to our fair town. Most of the damage has been undone, many residents have survived, and all events which were only circumstantially involved and probably unrelated were declared non-existent. This is just my personal opinion, but I think it applies pretty universally, don't you? Next up, 3 hours and 7 minutes of communist papers read in Swahili. Our little burg is not a weak one, listeners. We face danger with a cold, studied eye, not blinking, except for the sake of the health and careful moisturization of our figurative coronas. We face trouble head-on, metaphorically, bashing our enemies about the head, face, neck, and tail, literally, and we can smell fear before it comes to haunt our desert town. So remember, dear listeners, that we have come through another day, and may rest easy tonight, because it is a good night, Night Vale. Good night. This was an unofficial fan-made episode of Welcome to Night Vale. The official show is a production of Commonplace Books and is written by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner and produced by Joseph Fink. This episode was written and produced by Isaac Seagraves, who is me. The voice of this episode was also me, but I like to pretend it was Nicholas Godwin. Original music used in this fan episode is by Disparition. This episode's weather was One Woman Man by Isaac Seagraves, who is still me. Follow me on Tumblr at nightof-hope. I would like to thank my Night Vale intern for a hilariously gruesome death, like falling into a hyena pit while trying to avoid a bear cage or something. But I don't have an intern, not even a pretend one. The official Welcome to Night Vale crew at Commonplace Books, who are not me, can be contacted by email at nightvale@commonplacebooks.com, or followed on Twitter at NightValeRadio. Check out commonplacebooks.com for more information on that show, for which this show was a fan-made installment, as well as their books on the unused story ideas of H.P. Lovecraft and what it means to be a grown-up, for which this was not a fan-made installment. Today's proverb: an empty stomach is a bad political advisor.